hardworking. She had a lot of plan for her life.
Tonight, a guilty charge and a hefty sentence for the man convicted of the murder of Simone Sanderson.
And it's about where are we going as a people, and what does that mean to us as nations?
Katherine Whitecloud speaks on why she accepted the nomination to run for National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations. And keeping tradition alive with Yukon elder and Kaska Dena drummer, famous Amos. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. The family of Simone Sanderson has a degree of closure now that the man who killed her is going to prison. The young woman's body was found in 2012, but it took another 4 years for the police to figure out who killed her. Here's Ashley Branson with reaction from Sanderson's grandparents.
Kylan Ellis has been sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 12 years for the murder of Simone Sanderson. He was convicted of second-degree murder last month. Simone's body was found in a vacant lot in Winnipeg's North End in September 2012. Winnipeg police say the two didn't know each other before they met for sex. Her family has always denied Simone never worked in the sex trade. After the sentencing, her grandparents said their lives are shattered.
With them, they still have their son, and they still have maybe a hope for that there'll be a life for him. But we don't have anything.
Betty Ann Sanderson remembers her granddaughter fondly.
She's smart, hardworking. She had a lot of plan for her life. She was a good mother to her little boy.
Ashley Branson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
For the first time ever, Kahnawake Mohawk territory has had traditional lands returned to them. While it may only be a fraction of their land claim, it still has folks there wondering what to do with it. Tom Fenario has that story.
Every Mohawk in Kahnawake will say this is what Kahnawake needs to look like.
The yellow on this map represents Kahnawake's Seigneury of Sault Ste. Louis land claim, while this jagged line shows where Kahnawake's current reserve ends. The good news is that their lands have just grown by 500 acres.
It was a good day when we were notified that the actual transfer was done and that the land base of Kahnawake after centuries has finally grown and not decreased for the first time in our history.
It's been over a decade since Quebec agreed to return land to Kahnawake in return for building Highway 30 within their land claim. The process was delayed for years when the surrounding municipalities brought Quebec to court. The municipalities claimed Quebec didn't consult with them before taking land they viewed as their own. The irony was not lost on Clinton Phillips.
But I still believe that there is a consequence that should happen to the rest of the mayors because they held us up. They cost the community of Kahnawake, tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees.
Most of the land returned to Kahnawake is adjacent to the highway. Council feels it's missed out on years of economic windfall by not being able to build or lease to businesses there. But not everyone feels that profit should be the land's only purpose.
It'd be very disheartening to see all this land being landfilled and paved over. For me, that's very short-sighted, and in the long run, I think it's very irresponsible.
Today, it's just weed in the garden.
Nearly 4 years ago, Gunnar Rodeo Hemlock helped start this 20-acre community garden. Originally an act of protest, it was planted back when the land, in the eyes of Quebec, didn't belong to Kahnawake.
In terms of community land for agriculture, there is no place else in Kahnawake. This is it.
Phillips says that the land belongs to all of the community and that they'll be consulted on what to do with it. But before that happens, he's content to bask in the victory just a little longer.
The days of taking from Kahnawake are far, far gone.
That appears to be an understatement. There's still another 200 acres to come at a later date. Tom Fenario, APTN National News, Kahnawake, Mohawk Territory.
To Pictou, Nova Scotia now, where demonstrators are protesting over Northern Pulp's plans to pump effluent into the Northumberland Strait. Protesters chanting and carrying signs were joined by hundreds of others as fishing boats from all three maritime provinces converged off the coast. The pipe is supposed to replace the effluent treatment facility at Boat Harbour, which the government had promised to close by 2020. But the first promise to clean up Boat Harbor was made 10 years ago, back in 2008. The replacement would discharge about 70 million litres of treated effluent a day directly into the water, several kilometres from the mill. Protesters say their goal is to protect the strait for future generations. Chiefs from Treaty 2 are upset with a $635 million mega project. They say the Manitoba government is pushing ahead without any consultation. Leaders from the Treaty 2 communities gathered outside of the Manitoba legislature today. The massive project is being funded by the province and the federal government. It would see the creation of 2 channels to prevent flooding in the city of Winnipeg. Hundreds of people from Treaty 2 are still evacuated from the 2011 flood. Chiefs are calling on the province to address those issues first before moving ahead with the mega project.
Many of our non-Indigenous people will benefit from this, and we're the ones who are suffering. And this is just another example of where our people are being blockaded from being meaningfully impacted, being meaningfully compensated from all of the developments that are happening in our lands.
The Government of Canada and the Blood Tribe in southern Alberta have signed a Memorandum of Understanding on Reconciliation. Signing is expected to address the First Nations needs while strengthening the Treaty 7 agreement, which was first signed in 1877. Chief Roy Fox met with Minister Carolyn Bennett to sign the MOU. Reconciliation between the federal government and the Blood Tribe has had its difficulties. For example, they have been in a long court battle with the feds, claiming they are owed 265 square kilometers under Treaty 7. Officials on both sides said they hope the signing will be a turning point in opening up the lines of communication.
I think if you think of the old way of doing things, which was pretty well claiming rights, proving rights, then having to go to court to prove those rights. We now have opened up a table where we can discuss the things that are a priority to the community.
We're now learning more about the deadly heat wave in Quebec. At least 50 deaths are being blamed on the 7-day stretch of above 30-degree heat.
This is pretty exceptional. Usually these kind of heat waves, they last for 3, 4, 5 days.
Preliminary numbers were released by the province's health ministry. In Montreal, the majority of the dead are people over the age of 50 who live alone. Cooler air has now settled in, giving relief that was so desperately needed. During the heat wave, Montreal recorded 2 of its hottest days ever, but the temperature is expected to shoot back up next week. Time for a quick break, and then we'll wrap up our interviews with candidates for APTN National Chief. Stick around. Here's a look at Saturday's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, sunny high of 20 in Charlottetown and Halifax. Rain and 13 for Happy Valley Goose Bay, plus 8 in Nain and Cartwright. Another warm day across parts of Quebec. 27 in Montreal, 26 in Val-d'Or. Sunny day across southern Ontario, 28 in Sault Ste. Marie, 27 in Ottawa. 29 for Kapuskasing, 32 in Sioux Lookout. Rain and 22 in Churchill, 26 in Flin Flon and Norway House, 35 in Dauphin, 36 under sunny skies in Gimli Harbor. Sunny across much of Saskatchewan, 31 in Estevan, Regina and Yorkton, 18 in Stony Rapids, 17 in Uranium City. Welcome back. The election for APTN National Chief is July 25th in Vancouver. There are 5 candidates, and so far we've spoken to incumbent Perry Bellegarde, Miles Richardson, Russ Diabo, and Sheila North. Last but not least is Katherine Whitecloud. I spoke with her earlier. Katherine, thanks so much for being here with us to discuss why you're running, and maybe if we could start there on why you are running for National Chief.
I hate to say that I'm running. I accepted a nomination based on requests coming forward from knowledge keepers and elders. I spend a lot of time with our elders and our knowledge keepers and with grandmothers in our talks about our children and our families and what the future looks like for them. And it was for that reason that I accepted the nomination and the request to allow my name to stand.
We're talking about the future, but also asking candidates to reflect back on the past 4 years.
Sure.
and whether you think that First Nations in this country are better off since the last election for National Chief.
I think that it's at an even base right now. Although I know that the National Chief talks a lot about closing the gap, perhaps closing the gap in the sense of funding that has increased, but it's not increased to the levels that's required in our communities, and it's not increased to the levels required for supports for our people. For example, you saw the reports that just came out on the number of youth that are in our institutions. Right. You've seen the reports from StatsCan about the growth of our people versus the growth of the funds that are provided. And you've also seen the statistics about the number of children in care, which directly correlates with the number of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, if you follow the link and follow the reports that have been done. We've also seen the recent study about health care and the fact that our people are not receiving the health care that they deserve and should have, and it's our children that suffer for it, and our wise ones do. So even though there has been an influx of funding, it does not adequately address where our people are at. But we have to go beyond funding, because funding is just a Band-Aid for what it is that we need to do as a people to move forward as a people. And I've talked about that at the table with our elders and our knowledge keepers to a great extent. And it's about where are we going as a people, and what does that mean to us as nations? Because we talk about nationhood and we talk about rights and a rights-based approach, but what does that mean to you individually? And what does that mean to your people? And I like to use the example of the Blackfoot Confederacy. I was out there recently, and they have chosen to go back to their original confederacy, which includes all of their Blackfoot people through their original agreements and through their traditional protocols, the traditional ones, which includes not acknowledging the American-Canadian border, not acknowledging or going beyond provincial borders. And that is nationhood, when you lay claim to your language, your culture, and your ways of doing things, including your traditional territories, and acknowledging that and becoming responsible for that. That's nationhood. When we talk about money and we talk about policy, we talk about legislation, that's somebody else's policy and legislation. And those are tools for getting someplace. But what about how we feel as a people and about how we feel as nations? What are we doing about it, and what are we going to do about it for 7 generations forward, which is what we're to do, as that was those are the instructions given to us by our Creator, our God. So what are we doing about that? When we talk about 7 generations, especially children, that is my primary concern, is our children. Because for all of what's been done in attempting to close the gap, it still is our children that are suffering the most. We have the highest number of deaths of children in care, the highest numbers of children in care, and probably in the Western Hemisphere, in fact it is so, and children being apprehended at birth. And all those numbers, our children are still not graduating the numbers we want them to in an education system that doesn't address their needs, their special gifts, their innate talents. Our children are wonderfully blessed and gifted. But you can't get those gifts out of them when we impose a white middle-class provincial standard against our children.
So, Katherine, then what do you say to those people who feel that the AFN isn't representing the grassroots?
I would say that AFN needs to work on that, because obviously if that is being said, and I've heard it also, then the people from the communities are feeling left out and they're not being included. I understand that it is the people who chose their leadership, but the information and the knowledge and the communication back to the people is not happening if there is concern about the grassroots not being involved. In my conversations with people in communities, and you haven't seen me on the trail much, because I'm committed to our ways, and there are protocols associated with our ways that I abide by and I live by. Our people are saying, and our grassroots people are saying, how come we don't have a say? Why can't we decide who's going to be our national leader? Why can't we have a say in what's going to happen down the road? Because it's our children that are being affected by decisions made, or our children being affected by the inaction. And so yes, there is a gap, and how are we going to close that?
And Katherine, unfortunately, we do have to leave it there, but we look forward to hearing more from you in the coming weeks, and appreciate you take some time for us here today.
Thank you very much for the time. Appreciate it.
And APTN will have extensive coverage from the AFN in Vancouver. He's a hand games legend. We've got his story coming up after the break. Here's the rest of Saturday's weather forecast. Picking back up in northern Alberta, rain and 16 for Peace River and Grand Prairie. Sunny skies and 28 in Medicine Hat, 23 under the sun in Calgary. On the west coast, 17 in Tofino and Port Hardy, 19 in Campbell River. 19 as well for Prince George and Fort Nelson. In the Yukon, a cloudy day, 27 in Old Crow, 26 for Dawson City. Over to NWT, 14 in Fort Resolution, 22 in Norman Wells. Close to dipping below zero in Sax Harbor with a high of +1. Rain and 8 in Polituck. In Nunavut, rain and 19 in Arviette, rain and 15 in Whale Cove. +3 and rain on Saturday in Iqaluit, 12 above in Iqaluit. Welcome back. For generations, hand games have kept many Indigenous nations across the North entertained. In recent years, the game has made a resurgence with young and old playing side by side. APTN's Shirley McLean dropped by the 30th annual Yukon hand game tournament to catch up with famous Amos, a Yukon elder who's still rocking the game.
It's that time of year again when the people of the Yukon come together in celebration. This time for the 30th annual Hand Games tournament being held at Minto Landing. Amongst the diverse age group of drummers and players is Amos Dick, affectionately known as Famous Amos.
Oh, it's about 9 now. I still got my yet.
If he doesn't go to the hand games, people will be asking, where's Famous Amos? You know, that's how he got his name, because of hand games.
Amos, along with his son Gordon Peter and their team, the Kaska Novas, are waiting to play. Their next game will determine if they move ahead or are eliminated. Amos is Kaska Dena from the small community of Ross River in western Yukon. He's one of the oldest players on the hand game circuit. He says he's been playing the game for 76 years.
I say 1942, but 16 years old. People gamble. 12 men inside. Outside 12, this side 12. 10 drum men. They sell everything. Skin, money, beaver, martin.
The Kaska Novas take their place on the mat, backed up by Kaska drummers, playing drums made by Amos.
Make the caribou skin, cut by bees, make drumstick.
The game is all about outsmarting your opponent by guessing correctly in what hand they're hiding an object. The game is over after the guessing team wins all the sticks from the opposing team.
All the young guys fought around him drumming, and that's what we always do. We do that in every tournament, especially when he comes out, and he's the last one there. All the drummers just surround him to play for him, and he likes to put on a show too.
But luck was not on their side.
How does it feel to knock out Famous Amos?
Feels great. I'm telling you, my heart is tick, because, you know, Famous Amos, that's Famous Amos. To beat him, that feels good.
Even though they lost, Famous Amos is more than a crowd favorite. He's a keeper of teachings.
He's been teaching all the young people, first how to play the hand games and how to build the drums and, you know, keeping our tradition alive. As long as he keeps on going, he'll be around till he's over 100.
I'm getting old.
He might be getting old, but hand games keeps famous Amos connected to the land, to the younger generation, and to his son. They both say tradition keeps him going. Shirley McLean, APTN National News, Minto, Yukon.
I liked when famous Amos put on his rally cap there over to the side. You could watch a hand game story every day. Nunavut has the most artists per capita of anywhere in Canada. 33% of Nunavut residents are artists. Our Kent Driscoll visited a meeting of the artistic minds in Iqaluit, and he learned if you visit, you're bound to see something you've never seen before.
Every year, the Nunavut Arts and Crafts Association gathers artists from across the territory here in Iqaluit to network, to learn, and to create art. Founded in 1998, the Nunavut Arts and Crafts Association promotes the growth and appreciation of Nunavut artists. For some, it's learning, like these artists working with clay. But you'll always find something unique. What is on this man's glasses?
It's made out of ivory. I was thinking that maybe I should put something on to make it more wearable.
Pitzelak doesn't only work in ivory or eyeglass repair. He made the rings he's wearing, and he draws too.
I used to make one out of ivory, and I started thinking maybe I could make one in silver casting.
Elisipi Itulu is from nearby Kimaru, and she makes wall hangings. Each one can take days between the cutting and the stitching. This one is a story of a legendary Inuk, a story she decided to add to.
This is Kibir, and Kibir's his wife, but I didn't even know that he had a wife, but to my mind, I think I should add more something else. And this is a moon. These two couples are back home.
While they're meeting, these artists are also creating. And on Monday, Nunavut Day, they'll be selling their work. You want authentic Inuit art? It doesn't get any more authentic than this. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Some incredible work there. That's your APTN National News for this Friday. For more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. We're going to leave you tonight with some more from the hand games. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great weekend.